Jeffrey Goldberg reveals the contents of the signal messages and the, quote, top secret plans that we continue to hear about. So I'm going to talk about what's in this. I still don't believe a lot of the story here, even though I've seen some of it out with my own eyes, and that's based on the fact that it came out 9 days afterwards. But I'm going to make it my defense about this, plus talk about some of the reactions now that everything is starting to come out in the open with this, and where we go with that. And you wouldn't believe this if you looked at a news site like the Daily Wire or CNN or Fox News right now, because it is wall-to-wall signal on those websites right now. But believe it or not, there is other news. So, in other news, in the Ukraine, we have reached a tentative ceasefire at this point. It's a bit tenuous, and there are some things that are moving around in the background, but we'll talk about what's happening with that, where we go, and what happens here. A 25% tariff on imported cars and parts is announced in this country, and the market reacts to this. We'll talk about the market at the top of the show, then more towards the middle, we will talk about the new tariff and what this means for the people going forward. And the Doge Department is taking another chunk out of the government, or at least advising to do so. So we'll go over what that means for you, what that means for us, and what this means for the greater world. It is going to be all of this and more over here on Contemporary. So strap yourselves in, grab some coffee, grab a little bit of breakfast, tell your friends, and make sure you're commuting and getting to work on time, because it is Thursday, and unlike me, most of the rest of you have to go to work, and I got a new life. You would hardly recognize me. I'm so glad. How can a person like me care for you? Why do I bother when you're not the one for me? Ooh, is enough enough? That is wrong, because you are the ones for me, audience. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. You're going to get a theme song. We got to figure out what the theme song is going to be. I like the fact that we can open up and have... I mean, I can set the title card to go back out and be where it comes out at the end of a song. The songs on the game chops, which you should be listening to, by the way, are short enough that I can go back and set that out. And allegedly, I have permission to use a song catalog that's out there that you're all familiar with. I don't want to give any more details than that right now. And I'm actually debating whether or not to even have the music full on behind me throughout the entire stream. I like it, and I like to make sure. I like it that I can find out and know that there's something there and we don't have dead air if somebody stupid forgets to put his microphone back on or something else like that. But on top of that, I mean, I've been asked about bumpers, and I don't know what I would use them for because I don't do ad reads right now. If I did ad reads, then hell, yes, we would have bumpers. Heck yes, I'm sorry. Although I said hell a bunch yesterday. Is hell a swear word? If you're listening on the chat, or if you're listening on the replay right now, or on the live or on the replay right now, put in the comments or the live chat, whichever one is applicable to you, whether or not you think hell is a swear word or not, because I am trying hard not to cuss in front of your kids if you are on your morning commute, heading back and forth to work or whatnot. So put that in there. Anyway, hi, good morning. I'm Jay Edgar. This is Contemporary. There is a bunch of stuff today. I got up this morning and I had like 12 tabs. I'm like, cool, this is going to be a 1 hour Contemporary. But they were all just some of the stuff that was left over, and I realized any of the news that I was finding over the last 24 hours, just looking at the front pages of CNN, Fox, Daily Wire, I went to NPR, CBS, NBC, we're all just signal everywhere. But I did some digging, and I found that, yeah, there actually is some other stuff. Plus, yes, we do have half of the program from yesterday still to go over at the bottom of the hour, so we'll be talking about that, what goes on with that, and where we go with this. I do have to talk about Signal. I know that my tweet to go back out and advertise this was a little bit misleading at this point, but there were developments in this, and this is the big news story that's going on with this, so we're going to talk about this. I'm going to do my best to have the show that I do next week, whether I switch down to the afternoon to see how that works, or whether or not I pick my morning day, but I'm going to do my best to not have that entire show just be Signal, because I'm positive, just with what I saw last night and today when I was trying to get everything set up, that it's just going to be, for the next 4 days, a gigantic wall of Signal. Signal. Because that's what it was. But we're going to do what we've got going on right now. We'll talk about the new developments in this. We'll talk about some Doge. We'll talk about a little bit more foreign policy, some tariffs and things like that. So we'll be going through a bunch of stuff there and what happens there. Plus, we'll be talking about the Kane story. No matter what, if I have to skip everything else, we will talk about the Kane and Tim Wall story, because that was just too funny for me. That almost was on things I like, things I hate, because it was so funny. But there was more stuff that I wanted to cover than just one quick blurb article when everybody stopped paying attention. So we'll go on with that and where we go with that. Anyway, before we get started, go check out the weekly notice with Stephen Ignoramus. Go check that out. Stephen being on with my mortal enemy this week. I kid about the mortal enemy part. We did have a personal disagreement. I don't watch his content because of our personal disagreement. But Matt is a wonderful creator, despite my personal feelings with him. So if you are looking for good, non-biased reporting with facts and receipts to go with it, do check him out. Don't expect me to see me in the chat, but do go check him out. Go check out the Daily Ignoramus as well. This is not a paid sponsorship by either one of them, because Matt actually is a good creator and got me into this, even though we had a falling out at some point there, and Steven is one of my best friends. So go check both of them out. Go check out Overruled with Katie Zed on Sundays, talking about crime and punishment and what goes on with that, and looking through some of the court system follies that we go. So go check both of those programs out. The Porch Boys, when they come back, you will hear announcements about that as well. So go and check all of that out. And we're going to get down into the news today, starting with our markets. We got some live chat going on here. I've got Arvolt with good morning on the contemporary people. Tricks for free saying, I believe the security leak is a distraction. I kind of do too, and I'm going to question that when we get down into that news. The real problem is this, I'm on YouTube. Can I say that? Probably not, but I mean, you probably know where we're going with this. We need to stop funding with our lives and money on this nonsense. Arvolt in defense of Matt. Matt has evolved since you last knew him. Marriage, children, becoming Christian has been a good development for him. I am happy for him on that. Again, it was the personal disagreement, and I don't really want to go too far into it on this because, well, that's what it is. But with what he did with the suicide prevention stream that we did 4 years ago, that one was unforgivable for me. But I will still encourage other people who are not me, to go and watch the program. I do, because he's really good at what he does. Plain and simple. I have no beefs with the guy professionally. It's personal. All right, anyway, let's get down into the news. All right, starting with the Dow, which took a tumble today, which was probably pretty obvious given the fact that we went and talked about tariffs again, because the markets and the investors like to punish the administration, who is trying to make everything a little bit more fair and take away some of their bottom line. Markets now ending the Dow at 42,454.79. That took a big tumble throughout the midday yesterday. It looks like the futures are looking down too. So we'll read a little bit from our friends over at IBD, talking about what's happening with this. Of course, as I always say, nothing that I talk about here is going to be official financial advice. Always check with your financial advisor, who knows your family, possibly knows your portfolio, and knows what is best for you. I'm reading the facts off the screen. I may give a little quip here and there, but nothing that I can say is official financial advice because I don't know enough about the markets to do so. From Investors Business Daily, Dow Futures Trump tariffs on autos trigger market sell-off. I mean, to me, I say that stock's on sale, but check with your financial advisor first. Nvidia, Tesla, and Palantir hit from Ed Carson. On the Dow futures were little changed early Thursday, along with the S&P and the NASDAQ after Trump confirmed global auto tariffs. The stock market sold off Wednesday, led by NASDAQ on reports new Trump tariffs were imminent. Tesla and Dow giant Nvidia tumbled after mega caps led on Tuesday. Meanwhile, Palantir, cybersecurity firm Rubrik, imagine that, we're going to be talking about cybersecurity today, and German software giant SAP tumbled after flashing buy signals earlier in the week. Palantir is on the IBD leaderboard. Rubrik is on the IBD 50 on the futures. Dow futures edged higher versus fair value. The S&P declined 0.1 and the NASDAQ fell 0.2. So the industrials look like they are looking positively at what's happening in the auto markets, but the Standards & Poor and then also the tech stocks look like they are going to be coming back and pushing a little bit. Yeah, Arvolt is right on that one. The attacks on Tesla stock were hilarious. It dropped 30%, so I doubled my holdings. Not official financial advice. And now it's up 13%. The 10-year yield climbed a few points to 4.39%. And remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. We will talk about the tariffs later on in the show. So let's move on into the elephant in the room. Let's just get it out of the way, folks. Because I've been talking about this nonstop for the last 2 days, and I don't want to talk about it anymore. From The Atlantic, here are the attack plans that Trump's advisors shared on Signal. So Jeffrey Goldberg is coming with the receipts. Now, before I go in and read any of this, I still have trouble believing that any of this is real, based on the fact that it waited 9 days to come out. It looks like the government is confirming that it's real. I have never trusted the government in my life, though, so part of that's still going to be, yeah, I don't believe a word of this. But it's coming out here. There's a little bit of messaging problem that goes along with this as well. People are saying that this is not classified. I have not read this in full, so I don't know what is classified and what is not. But I still have a lot of issues with this. And my biggest question, and I have read no less than 47 articles about this in the last 3 days, is still, how did Goldberg get in the chat when Waltz claims that he doesn't know him? We'll read a little bit more of this, and then I'll talk about some of the theories that have been floating around on this. Yeah, I passed a Model Y the other day myself. They're cool looking cars, and in the closest city to me, Eau Claire, there are like 5 or 6 Cybertrucks that run around, especially out on the north side. Still have not touched one. So about that Signal chat, on Monday, shortly, oh, look at that. The Atlantic put this behind a paywall. Aren't you surprised? So guess what we're going to do about that? It's too bad about the feud between Brave and Archive, or the Internet Archive here, because when I was still using Chrome, there was an extension where I could just click a button on a web page and it would automatically archive for it or bring up the archive if somebody already had. Brave, you can't go back and do that. But I switched off of Chrome because, well, it mostly came down to the fact that they told me that I couldn't use my ad blocker on YouTube anymore. And with Brave's automatic ad blocker in, it's not a worry anymore and they don't block you from Brave. So that was the part that pissed me off. Wow, I'm doing worse today than I did yesterday. And I got more sleep last night than I did yesterday. Alright, from the Atlantic, now archived. So about that Signal chat, on Monday, shortly after we published a story about a massive Trump admin security breach, a reporter asked the Secretary of Defense why he had shared plans about a forthcoming attack on Yemen on the Signal messaging app. He answered, nobody was texting war plans, and that's all I have to say about that. Anyway, yeah, they're going to come back out and say that everybody in the world lied to them. Signal was, message group was entitled permissible and lawful, did not include classified information, wasn't classified information. These statements presented us with a dilemma in the Atlantic's initial story about the Signal chat. The Houthi PC small group, as it was named by Walls, was we withheld specific information related to weapons and the timing of the attack that we found in certain texts. As a general rule, we do not publish information about military operations that, if that information could possibly jeopardize the lives of U.S. personnel. That's why we chose to characterize the nature of the information being shared, not specific details about the attack. There's a clear public interest in disclosing that sort of information. Blah, blah, blah. No classified information from bubble-headed bleach blonde. So my question here is, yeah, we've got the pictures. It's still unclear why a journalist was added to the text exchange. Waltz, who invited Goldberg into the Signal chat, said yesterday he was investigating how the heck he got into this room. Now, initially, when this first came out, the first thought is that they were looking to bring somebody else into the room who had the same initials to this. Again, we'll talk about this in just a bit. I want to look at these images. So, disappearing message time was set to a week. MAR, edit MAR. So, establishing principals group for coordination. Let's see. So, it looks like, too, that it was aides that were, for the most part, responding in a lot of this. And I think a part of that, because this is supposed to be Marco Rubio, but it's Mike Needham that's answering for this, and I don't know if this is an aide for Mark Needham. I don't know if this is an aide for J.D. Vance. I don't know if this is an aide for Tulsi Gabbard, people like that. I should have a statement of conclusions, taskings per the president. So these things are going back and forth talking about and these are the things that we knew about from the beginning. So I want to scroll down just a little bit off of this. So this appears to be where the issue comes in. So Pete Hegseth, or the aide with Pete Hegseth, texts out at this point, team update, time now 11:44 Eastern Time, weather is favorable. Just confirmed with CENTCOM, we're a go for mission launch. 12:15 Eastern Time, F-18's launch first strike package. 13:45, trigger-based F-18 first strike, window starts, target terrorist at his known location, should be on time. So also strike drones, launch MQ-9s. 14:10, more F-18s launch, second strike package. 14:15, strike drones on target. This will be when the first bombs will definitely drop, pending earlier trigger-based targets. 15:36, F-18 second strike starts, also first sea-based Tomahawks launch. More to follow per timeline. We're currently clear on OPSEC. Godspeed to our warriors. Vance will say a prayer for victory. Then we go back on. Building collapse, had multiple positive ID. Kirill at the IC, amazing job. And then talking a little bit about the fallout that went from this. So, on first glance, and I read this for the first time with you guys, this part, I've seen the tweets go around here, I was to the understanding that there would probably be a little bit more than this. Now, looking at the messages here, there's a timeline to this. But this is the sort of information that would go out because you've also got various, and I use the term respectfully, but you've got various grunts on the bottom who are not privy to top secret information. This is the kind of information that you typically want to get out to them. Now, down here, not so much, but this is the kind of information that you want to get out to your low-level guys who are actually making this kind of stuff happen. We don't have any strategic information on where the Tomahawks are. We don't have a lot of really specific information on what the targets are. I mean, I can scroll back up here and look a little bit through this, and yeah, there's really nothing here that compromises our U.S. security, that compromises the location of our missiles. I mean, the sea is a gigantic place. When you say ocean-based Tomahawk missiles, there's billions of acres of ocean where those Tomahawks could be in. So this isn't exactly a nothing burger to me. But this isn't they're giving away every secret of our nation that we've also been hearing for the last 3 days. We're somewhere in between the two of these things. I know the staunchest MAGA supporters will come back out and say this is a complete nothing burger. And every progressive liberal in the world will have their hands flying and shaking and screaming and saying that this is the end of the world because our top secret people are giving out top secret information and selling it back out to Russia. We're somewhere in between those two. And I need you to understand that. So, why? Why did this happen? Now, a couple of things that I do want to point out with this are the fact that we have Jeffrey Goldberg in this group, but as I mentioned at the top of this, when we started listing the names of the people who are coming in, not everybody who is involved with this are the actual people who are on that are being named in the messages. And they came right out and said that at the beginning. I don't know who any of the names are on this list. I'd like to know who these are, but I don't know if Brian McCormick is the actual Brian that's listed, but everybody else appears to have a staffer and aide that are coming in saying that they're speaking for these people. And just kind of digging through here, I don't see any sort of indication that other than this Brian McCormick, if that's the same Brian that's listed off of this, I don't see any other indication that any of these people are the people whose names are on there, or if this is The Office, and then Michael Waltz added SM, and I don't know who this is. So my question starts to become if an aide for whoever the JG was off this is in and of himself took a bribe, took on the take or something to go back and make sure that they switched the Jeffrey Goldberg with whoever the JG was supposed to be. But there's something more that's going along with this. But at this point, I can't come out and say that, yes, this didn't happen anymore, because multiple people whose offices, I should say, were involved with this have confirmed it, and we've actually seen some of the leaks that go with this. So I'm going to skip the CNN one because, well, basically we just look back at the same thing we just did. Now, let's talk about some of the reaction to start with. From the Daily Wire, CIA Director John Radcliffe shreds Atlantic editor behind signal story, deliberately false. From Daily Wire News, CIA Director John Radcliffe accused the journalist from The Atlantic who wrote a piece about the top Trump officials communicating over a signal chat group that inadvertently included him of lying in his report. Okay, having read the report, you have my attention. Radcliffe made the remarks during a testimony in front of the House Intelligence Committee, alongside the FBI Director Kash Patel, National Security Agency Director Timothy Haw, Defense Intelligence Agency Director Lieutenant General Jeffrey Cruz. My first responsibility as CIA Director, one of its responsibilities is to kill terrorists. And that's exactly what I did along with Trump's excellent national security team, he said. I wouldn't say that's one of your responsibilities, and that's kind of bloodthirsty, but okay. That's what we should be focused on. Radcliffe said one of the major issues with the article was how it was falsely suggesting things that never happened. I spent 4 hours answering questions from senators as a result of that article that were intimating that I transmitted classified information because they were hidden messages. Those messages were revealed today and revealed that I did not transmit classified information, and the reporter, who I don't know, I think intentionally intended to indicate that. Let's watch. The reporter also indicated I had released the name of an undercover CIA operative in the signal chat. He continued, in fact, I had released the name of my chief of staff, who was not operating undercover. That was deliberately false and misleading.
You know, there's so much talk about this Atlantic article and about things that were said and that could have happened instead of a focus on what did happen. So my responsibility as CIA director, one of its responsibilities is to kill terrorists. And that's exactly what I did along with President Trump's excellent national security team. That's what we should be focused on. With regard to that article, I also would appreciate the opportunity to relay the fact that yesterday I spent 4 hours answering questions from senators as a result of that article that were intimating that I transmitted classified information because there were hidden messages. Those messages were revealed today and revealed that I did not transmit classified information, and that the reporter, who I don't know, I think intentionally intended it to indicate that. That reporter also indicated that I had released the name of an undercover CIA operative in that signal chat. In fact, I had released the name of my chief of staff, who is not operating undercover. That was deliberately false and misleading, and I appreciate the opportunity to reflect that my answers haven't changed. I used an appropriate channel to communicate sensitive information. It was permissible to do so. I didn't transfer any classified information. And And at the end of the day, what is most important is that the mission was a remarkable success, is what everyone should be focused on here, because that's what did happen, not what possibly could have happened.
Yeah, he's right. And there could have been classified information off this. We do need to sit back and figure out how this happened, where this happened, but right now, this wasn't what it was presented to us as. Former national security officials say airstrike plans shared with journalists should have been classified. But the issue with that is, of course, they're former national security officials. They don't get a say. When they're active national security officials, then it actually probably really won't make a difference to me what they say either, but they're former, so it really doesn't make a difference to me. All right, this is from Dan DeLuce and Gordon Lubold. Former senior national security officials and Democratic lawmakers rejected Wednesday the Trump admin's continued assertion that detailed U.S. airstrike plans inadvertently shared with a journalist were not classified. They cited the Atlantic's publication of a full transcript of the signal text exchange, where the admin's top national security officials discussed planned U.S. airstrikes in Yemen. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, according to the magazine, shared the precise timing of planned fighter jet and drone launches when bombs would hit their targets and disclosed a U.S. attempt to kill a target terrorist, unnamed, of course. That is likely why this fell under the umbrella of unclassified. Hegseth, though, did not include specific targeting locations for the strikes in Yemen. Also, where this doesn't wind up as classified. But four former national security intelligence officials who handled legal matters told NBC News that information about an upcoming military attack on an adversary, including types of weapons and the timing of airstrikes, is considered classified. I don't think there's any question that we're dealing with classified information, Leon Panetta, a former CIA director and defense secretary, told MSDNC on Tuesday. I wonder where his biases were when MSDNC had hired him. Plans for possible military operations are kept strictly secret because the Defense Department recognizes that if that information were to leak to an adversary, it would not only cost lives, but would damage our national security, Panetta said. The three other officials who spoke on condition of anonymity. Anonymous sources. Is the Mogwai watching in the morning? Is his cat up here? Citing fears of retaliations, said it would be difficult to imagine a scenario in which details of a planned military operation would not be considered classified. Sharing sensitive information in advance of an operation could put pilots flying fighter jets, or the crews of warships launching missiles, at risk, or even imperil the mission itself, former officials said. According to a Pentagon manual on classification, significant military plans or intelligence matters are defined as secret, and their disclosure could cause serious damage to operations, assets, or individuals. So, this is the argument for why this should have been secret, but again, there were no specifics in this other than the fact that, oh hey, this is coming. There aren't really any specifics even there as to where it is going to. When you scroll back down, we'll see the most specific information that we have here is target terrorist, who is unnamed, is at his known location, so should be on time. Who's the terrorist? What is his known location? F-18s launch first strike package. Where do they launch from? When will we know when and where they launch from? Will we know when we point up to the sky and say, ooh, look at the pretty planes? This is probably going to get me accused of a certain Roman salute by doing that. More F-18s launch. Strike drones on target. What's the target? Penny or trigger based? This does not, to me, fall under the classification of secret or top secret information. The Times might make this questionable, but I don't see where this falls under that. Is it tremendously stupid? Yes. Is it secret? Not really. I've got an op-ed from Tebby Troy. There's a precedent for White House signal chat leak. It's more than 100 years old. It's more than 1,000 years old. It's more than 4,000 years old. There's a precedent for the signal chat leak, and that is, and Tebby Troy, I did read this one a little bit earlier, made the same point that I'm about to make, is the precedent for this, the signal chat leak is that there have been leaks of military operations since they started being written down. The opinions that are expressed in this article are the opinions of Tebby Troy and not necessarily the opinions of contemporary, J. Edgar, or Fox News. Let's get the chat back up here. The revelation that top U.S. national security officials used signal to discuss classified battle plans against the Houthis emerged because Atlantic magazine journalist Jeffrey Goldberg was somehow in their signal chat. This remarkable move back to the top. Okay. Hey, question. Why are we reading about TikTok suddenly? Fox News is doing their stupid shit again, by the way. Which probably isn't too hard to believe because they do a lot of stupid shit. Alright, the revelation that top U.S. national security officials use Signal to discuss classified battle plans against Houthis emerged because the Atlantic magazine journalist Jeffrey Goldberg was somehow in their Signal chat. This remarkable security breach is shocking, but not completely unprecedented. The truth is that as long as national security information is written down somewhere, anywhere, it has the potential to find its way into places it should not. Perhaps one of the most legendary military leaks in American history was of General Lee's Special Order 191, which detailed his battle plans during the Confederate invasion of Maryland in 1863. 2 Union soldiers found plans wrapped around a cigar box from where the documents made their way to General McClellan. Upon seeing them, McClellan said, "Now I know what to do." He intercepted Lee's forces, leading to the bloody but important Union victory at Antietam. In both these cases, the leaks were inadvertent, but it's more common that there's at least some intentionality in modern-era leaks. Washington Post editor Brent Bradley revealed an incident in which JFK left a briefcase with government papers with Post publisher Bill Graham. The documents pertain to U.S. government's approach to dealing with French leader Charles de Gaulle. When questioned about the wisdom, yes, that Charles de Gaulle, by the way. When questioned about the wisdom of leaving documents he knew to be classified with a newspaper publisher, Kennedy said of Graham, "He has been good to me and this country, and I want to help him out." Of course, Graham's paper would subsequently be involved in some much more significant leaks. One of them was the Pentagon Papers during Nixon's admin. In this case, Rand Corporation official and Vietnam War skeptic Daniel Ellsberg leaked documents about the U.S. national security establishment thinking on Vietnam during the Kennedy and Johnson admins. The documents did not reveal contemporary U.S. war strategy, but they showed skepticism by U.S. officials about America's increasing involvement in the war. The Nixon admin went to court to stop the New York Times, a former newspaper, from running the documents, but Ellsberg also leaked them to the Washington Post, where democracy goes to die in darkness, which did run the information. Ellsberg was brought to trial for his actions, but the charges were eventually dismissed. The Nixon admin suffered more damaging leaks from the Deep Throat, who gave the Washington Post reporters Bob Woodward, yes, that Bob Woodward, and Carl Bernstein, Not as famous, but yes, also that Carl Bernstein, inside information about the Watergate burglary cover-up. The scandal led to Nixon's resignation, but it was only a few years later that when Woodward and Bernstein published All the President's Men that the American public learned about the existence of the mysterious source Deep Throat. Sorry, I laugh at that name all the time. This led to decades of speculation about Deep Throat's identity. You think it was Marilyn Monroe? That only ended in 2005 when former FBI Director Mark Felt revealed that he had been the secret source. I feel like with a name like Deep Throat, it wasn't a dude. But it might have been, I guess. And yes, leaks of information like this have been happening since Abraham was walking around. Probably before that. The White House says the security breach is a hoax. Here's why it's not. This is an op-ed from Stephen Collinson. The opinions that are expressed in this article are the opinions of Stephen Collinson, not necessarily the opinions of contemporary J. Edgar or CNN, although they are the opinions of CNN. Let's be real. In Trump's White House, it matters less that you screw or what you screw up than how hard you fight back. The uproar over operational details of military strikes in Yemen, posted in a group chat among top officials, is highlighting the fundamental rule of life in the president's orbit. Excuse me. Naive and sloppy behavior by top Trump aides could have endangered U.S. pilots. One of the worst intelligence breaches by top officials in years. Again, you just read the same thing I did. How did that endanger top military pilots? Who, again, we didn't know where they were going to be because the signal chat didn't mention anything about where the strike was going to be, where it went. It just said at the target. So you don't know what the target is until innocent little brown children are pointing up to the sky and saying, "Look at the pretty planes, Mommy." That's a Bush era joke, by the way. One of the worst intelligence breaches by top officials in years. Not even close. It raises grave questions about the competence of top officials meant to keep America safe. But the admin's main concern is protecting the president and his team. They're demonizing those who point out the malfeasance and embroidering the wider conspiratorial narrative that Trump is again the victim of a deep state witch hunt. The obsession with answering a national security scandal with fiercely political argument is characteristic of a White House that never admits wrongdoing. Obama! Obama! Following one of the core principles of Trump's pre-political life. But the drama may have already damaged U.S. operations in Yemen as well as America's reputation more broadly, and offered an intelligence bonanza to its enemies, the contempt by top officials for basic security precautions and a refusal to hold themselves to account for transgressions that could get a subordinate dismissed or even prosecuted can only compromise the integrity of government. It's too early to say, however, whether the careers of top cabinet members and officials are threatened and whether Trump himself might pay a political price. He will. And the cabinet members, too, are, by the way. Walz is probably going to wind up losing his job over this. I would be very surprised if he didn't. And it's going to boil down to figuring out who the aide was that got Goldberg into the chat, how he was vetted, and how he got his job. The president's process of souring on subordinates is often a slow burn, which can be affected by media coverage and where blemishes gather their own momentum and limit the shelf life of top aides. The White House pulls one of its favorite excuses. It's a hoax. It kind of is. I mean, it literally happened, but it wasn't the story that we were sold 2 days ago when people started freaking the F out about this. White House Press Secretary, bubble-headed bleach blonde, on Wednesday insisted that the affair was a big hoax and showed that Democrats and their propagandists in the mainstream media knew how to fabricate, orchestrate, and disseminate a misinformation campaign quite well. She also attacked the integrity of the Atlantic editor-in-chief Jeffrey Goldberg, who was mistakenly added to the chat among senior officials. And again, a reminder, this is suckers and losers guy. Trump, meanwhile, claimed that the explicit pre-mission details of the attacks on Houthi rebels posted by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth were no big deal. Again, my question here, let's go right back to it. Bring it back. Let's go right up to the top of the thread. Did Pete Hegseth leak the plans, or did Dan Caldwell leak the plans? Whoever Dan Caldwell is. Let's see. Trump, meanwhile, claimed the explicit pre-mission details, not explicit, of attacks on Houthi rebels posted by Pete Hegseth were no big deal, arguing the National Security Advisor Mike Waltz took responsibility for putting Goldberg in the chat. How do you bring Hegseth into this? Trump asked a reporter in the Oval Office. Hegseth had nothing to do with this. Oh, we got ourselves a Mike Tyson joke in the chat here. Arvold, everyone is worried about the Houthis. I'm worried about the blowfifth. Tricks for Free says Deep Throat was a movie in 72. Pretty sure that's why the pervert chose the name. I thought it was just his favorite activity. MASA, Make America Safe Again, Stop Funding Foreign Wars, also says Tricks for Free. I do have to push back on Arvold on this one, though. All the journalists had to do to not leak the sensitive information was to shut his mouth. I do have a vested interest in whether or not information like this is getting out. One of the biggest arguments that I had was during the document scandal when they raided the Mar-a-Lago and the subsequent 3 years of people saying that this means that he's compromised to Russia, this, that, the next thing. The biggest argument that I always made was the fact of, if there's a document in there that hurts your feelings and you know everything that's in these boxes, knowing full well the progressives who couldn't stop screaming about the boxes had never seen any document in there, was, show me the document. Show me the document that hurt your feelings. And nobody's ever been able to do so. I will give Goldberg credit where it's due to Goldberg. I asked for a receipt, even though he has never seen Contemporary, doesn't know that I was one of the people that asked for the receipt. He brought a receipt. The receipt was not what he sold it as the first time. But yes, if there's concern about this kind of thing, then the American people should know about it, no matter what the color of the tie of the person in the office is. I would be saying the same thing if Matt Walsh got let into a signal chat with top Biden official members about our next incursion into Russia from the Ukraine, using our soldiers with Ukrainian patches on their jackets. I would be saying the exact same thing. We need to know about this. That I know I can't say on YouTube. Thank you, Tricks for Free. And it's part of because of who runs YouTube. Rubio breaks silence on leaked signal chat. Someone made a big mistake. From Caitlin McFall. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, for the first time on Wednesday, addressed the Signal chat controversy and conceded that someone made a big mistake when a journalist from The Atlantic was added to a Signal text chain that included Washington's top national security heads. This thing was set up for purposes of coordinating, Rubio told reporters from Jamaica, noting the point of the text exchange carried out on the encrypted messaging application was purely so that officials knew how to communicate with their various counterparts. But the revelation that potentially classified information was exchanged on a site that has been the target of Russian hackers, and that the chain included an editor from The Atlantic, sent shockwaves globally. Through the Pentagon maintains that no classified intelligence was exchanged in the messages. Reading the messages, I maintain that as well. Obviously, someone made a big mistake. Someone made a big mistake and added a journalist. Nothing against journalists, but you ain't supposed to be in that thing. I contributed to it twice, identified in my point of contact, which is my chief of staff. Alright, so we have a name. Or we have a title of who this person, we had a name to begin with. So, MAR, who is Marco Rubio, Mike Needham is his chief of staff. And then later on, I think 3 hours after the White House's official announcements had been made, I congratulated the members of the team. He continued. Rubio said that though the information was not technically classified, nor did it at any point threaten the operation of the lives of servicemen, the information was not intended to be divulged, and the White House was investigating the matter. Trump downplayed the severance of the lapse, noting it was the only glitch in 2 months. His admin had faced and told NBC News that the debacle turned out to not be a serious one. Wouldn't go that far either. Britt Hume scolds the admin for making a mess in Signal Chant response. From Philip Timotija. Fox News' political commentator Britt Hume scolded Trump's admin for making a mess in response to the Signal group chat revelation, where top national security officials were discussing the plan to attack Houthi rebels in Yemen. Hume set a couple of iron rules when responding to the scandal. 1. Get the facts out as fast as possible, and don't be afraid to take responsibility. 2. Once rule 1 is taken care of, don't feed the story. Hume wrote in a Wednesday post on the social media platform X. In his view, the admin is not following rule number 2. With regard to the Signal messaging case, the admin is making a mess of Rule 2 by getting bogged down in a dispute over whether the details of Yemen bombing raids were a war plan, and whether those details were or should have been classified. All that is done is prolong the story, Hume said. Well, when he's right, he's right. Britt Hume is one of the more cringy personalities on Fox News, but again, when he's right, he's right. Why are the Yemenis called rebels? The Yemenis are called rebels because the group that is actually carrying out the attack is a force that is currently at odds with the official government of Yemen. So Yemen is in the state of a civil war right now. And in territory that the Houthis control, the rebels control, is what butts up against the Red Sea. So because the U.S. is in support of the Yemeni government, and many other Western forces are aligned with the Yemeni government themselves, they've taken it upon themselves to attack any ship that goes through that shipping lane to try to slow down and bog down the countries that are supporting the official government. So the official government is a puppet government of the U.S. Where's my chat face? Yes. Same thing goes for attacking a reporter who, through no fault or action of his own, received the Signal conversation. That, I, in and of itself, would question. Because if it was the chief of staff for Waltz who set this whole thing up, then he probably at least had a conversation with his aide in the background at some point. So, the through no fault of his own, I don't believe that. If it was any other journalist, well-known, that did it, except maybe Rachel Maddow, I would say that, yeah, through no fault of his own. But again, this is the suckers and losers guy. So, and I do dispute what Bert Hume said about Rule 1, too, because get the facts out as fast as possible. Don't be afraid to take responsibility. The first thing you need to do is get everybody on the same page before they start going up in front of the media. Because Tulsi Gabbard said one thing, Hegseth said another thing, Waltz said a third thing, and Trump said a fourth thing. That's another part of the reason the story is continuing. So that's rule 1, is get your facts straight. They're being sued for this, and guess who the judge is? Well, there are a few judges that it could be based on the headline, but guess who nominated the judge? That's a better question. Trump sounds off after a highly conflicted Obama-nominated judge assigned Signal Chat lawsuit. Disgraceful. Trump sounded off on Truth Social earlier Thursday, because of course he did, after Judge James Boasberg of the U.S. District Court of Columbia was assigned to preside over a lawsuit lodged against the Trump admin and the National Archives and Records Administration. The Obama-nominated judge has also been presiding over a lawsuit challenging Trump's invocation of the Alien Enemies Act for authority to deport Venezuelan members of Tren de Aragua, which the U.S. has designated a foreign terrorist group. How disgraceful it is that Judge James Boasberg has been given a fourth Trump case, something which is statistically impossible. There's no way for a Republican, especially a Trump Republican, to win before him. He is highly conflicted, not only in his hatred of me, massive Trump derangement syndrome, but also because of disqualifying family conflicts, Trump asserted in a post. Boasberg, who is the chief judge of the U.S. District Court, the D.C. District Court, seems to be grabbing the Trump cases all to himself, even though he's not supposed to happen that way. Is there still such a thing as the wheel, where judges are chosen fairly and at random? He continued. The good news is that probably doesn't matter because it's virtually impossible for me to get an honest ruling in D.C. Our nation's courts are broken, with New York and D.C. being the most preeminent of all their corruption and radicalism. There must be an immediate investigation of this rigged system before it's too late. Trump called for Boasberg to be impeached earlier this month. I have no idea if Boasberg is just getting really, really, really lucky in this, or if there's something moving on behind the scenes. But it does seem like he's going to go back and use this to take some revenge. From the Daily Wire. 2 in a row because of video. Bubble-headed bleach blonde hammers Jeffrey Goldberg at press briefing. Bleach blonde took aim at Goldberg's credibility by highlighting some of his past controversial reporting. Let's listen.
Unfortunately, all of this good is happening for our country. This administration is working hard on behalf of the American public every day, but the mainstream media continues to be focused on a sensationalized story from the failing Atlantic magazine that is falling apart by the hour. Here are...
Why does she sound so much like Trump? That, just the way that she read that, the wording of that, that sounded like a Trump Truth Social post. Why are we focusing on all other reporting from the failing Atlantic? They're the worst. If she'd have said they're the worst at the end of that, I would have lost it. That would have been too funny for me not to laugh out loud at.
Are the facts. The National Security Advisor has taken responsibility for this matter, and the National Security Council immediately said, alongside the White House counsel's office, that they are looking into how a reporter's number was inadvertently added to this messaging thread. We have said all along that no classified material was sent on this messaging thread. There were no locations, no sources, or methods revealed, and there were certainly no war plans discussed. The Atlantic has even admitted this themselves. Their release of these internal messages validates the truth, which we have been saying all along. If this story proves anything, it proves that Democrats and their propagandists in the mainstream media know how to fabricate, orchestrate, and disseminate a misinformation campaign quite well. And there's arguably no one in the media who loves manufacturing and pushing hoaxes more than Jeffrey Goldberg. Goldberg is an anti-Trump hater. He is a registered Democrat. Goldberg's wife is also a registered Democrat and a big Democrat donor who used to work under who? Hillary Clinton. This is the same Jeffrey Goldberg who infamously lied about weapons of mass destruction to get us into the Iraq War, which cost trillions of dollars and thousands of American soldiers. And how else has Goldberg discredited himself? By absurdly claiming that President Trump was Vladimir Putin during the 2016 campaign, by peddling the Russia, Russia, Russia hoax that tried to hijack President Trump's first term, by inventing the suckers and losers hoax to help Joe Biden in the 2020 election, by peddling a hoax about President Trump involving Gold Star families to help Kamala Harris in the 2024 election, which our campaign at the time vigorously denied. Jeffrey Goldberg didn't care. There's more, but we don't have all day, and we can now add this signal hoax to this very long list.
It's like they put Trump in a woman body. Holy crap. I didn't expect that video to go that way. Hegseth also firing back at the media over Signalgate reporting, which we also have video of. Let's check. Let's listen.
Nobody's texting war plans. Well, I noticed this morning out came something that doesn't look like war plans. And as a matter of fact, they even changed the title to attack plans because they know it's not war plans. There's no units, no locations, no routes, no flight paths, no sources, no methods, no classified information. You know who sees war plans? I see them every single day. I looked at them this morning. I looked at attack plans this morning. You know who does attack plans and war plans? Men like that admiral right there, Paparo, for the Indo-Pacific, or Eric Kurilla, our general in CENTCOM. They do attack plans and war plans. And thank God we have those leaders who do it and do it well, and our enemies know it. My job, as it said atop of that, everybody's seen it now, team update is to provide updates in real time. General updates in real time, keep everybody informed. That's what I did. That's my job. The war fighters will take the fight to the enemy, and I love what they do. And with President Trump's leadership, our enemies are on notice. We will have peace through strength, and we'll keep putting our troops first. Thank you very much. We're heading off.
And again, there were details of the when, but not the how, the why, and the where. All right. Tricks for Free says, what came up with that Trump derangement syndrome tag for those who are overly obsessed with Trump? It goes both ways, right? Those who hate and adore him. I can see that. Arvolt says, the Trump cadence is infectious. We need Operation Warp Speed to come up with a cure. Let's see. Can't read that. Arvolt says, Carolyn Levitt is the best, just the best. Everyone says so. Oh no, I've got the Trump cadence too. This is huge. Huge. Nice. I like that. That's funny. Alright, so that's what we have on the signal stuff. A lot of stuff with that one here. Let's talk about some of the other things that are happening in this same vein. We got some foreign policy stuff here. From the Associated Press to start, new U.S. airstrike campaign targeting Yemen's Houthi rebels. More intense than last, the Associated Press finds. And if you want to know more details about that, of course, you can just download the Signal app, apparently. From John Gambrell, a new American airstrike campaign against Houthis appears more intense and more extensive as the U.S. moves from solely targeting launch sites to firing at ranking personnel, as well as dropping bombs in city neighborhoods. A Associated Press review of the operation shows. A pattern under Trump reflects a departure from the Biden admin, which limited its strikes to Arab allies. As Arab allies tried to reach a separate peace with the group. It comes after the Iran-backed Houthis threatened to resume attacking any Israeli vessel over the country's refusal to allow aid into the Gaza Strip. The Houthi attacks and the response. Hold on, I want to back up on that one just a bit. And I know we'll be talking about it again later on things I like, things I hate. But with the allowing aid into the Gaza Strip, now my question here is, because the Gazans have decided that they're going to uprise against their Hamas leaders, do the Houthis still have a vested interest in that region? Or were they specifically aligned with Hamas based on their ties with Israel? Iran, not Israel. Gosh, I'm reading way too much out of my own chat, apparently. The Houthi attacks and the response to them have drawn new scrutiny in Washington after security officials and Trump's admin shared plans for the first round of strikes on the rebels in a group chat that included a journalist. We know about that. Folks that say we'll go in there and take out everyone with the last name Houthi and will win. The Houthi leadership has been taken out in history and in the past, and their resilient retired Navy Vice Admiral Kevin Donegan said, "They came back and they grew stronger. This isn't something that is one and done." Meanwhile, concerns are growing over civilians being caught in the middle of the campaign. Well, that's probably because the Houthis are going to hide behind them, just like they did in Gaza, which is the reason there's an uprising with that. While the U.S. military has not acknowledged any civilian casualties since the strikes began over a week ago, activists fear strikes may have killed non-combatants already in territory tightly controlled by the Houthis. That's the cost of war. That's why I am staunchly against it. Just because you can't see civilian harm doesn't mean it's not happening, warned Emily Tripp, the director of the UK-based group Air Wars, which studies Western airstrike campaigns. Oh, she's director of a UK-based group. That means I should have read this like this. Just because you can't see civilian harm doesn't mean it's not happening. Hey, mate? I am probably never going to be allowed in the UK in my life. The Trump campaign began March 15th. American warships fired cruise missiles while fighter jets flying off USS Harry S. Truman aircraft carrier dropped bombs on Houthi-controlled areas. A simple irony of a ship that's named the Harry S. Truman dropping bombs on literally anywhere. There's I wouldn't say irony about that. What's the word I'm looking for? There's a certain amount of poetic justice to that. A nation on the southern edge of the Arabian Peninsula that is the Arab world's poorest. No terrorist force will stop American commercial naval vessels from freely sailing the waterways of the world. Trump said in a social media post announcing the campaign days after his administration reimposed a foreign terrorist organization designation on the Houthis. So far, the Houthis say airstrikes have killed 57 people, so... Like I said, if you want more details on that one, we'll go upload the Signal app and we'll go sign into the group chat and see what it is that Hegseth and all of his buddies, or at least their aides, are talking about. From Fox, Houthis claim responsibility for strikes against the U.S. ships, per report. From Landon Mian, Houthi militants in the Yemen are claiming responsibility for a new attack against U.S. warships in the Red Sea. The group claimed in a statement published by the Jerusalem Post late Tuesday that they had attacked the USS Harry Truman aircraft carrier and several U.S. warships in the Red Sea. Early Wednesday local time, the Houthis said they targeted a U.S. vessel and an Israeli military locations using drones. Fox News Digital has reached out to the Department of Defense for comment. One of the other things with that and fog of war is the fact that they can sit here and claim that they did it all they want, and I don't believe that ISIS inspired all the attacks that they claimed. A lot of the times it's just to make the U.S. mad. Oh, hey, somebody hit your nice fancy aircraft carrier over there? It was us. We don't have the naval capability to do it, but it was us. Promise. Do something about it. B-word. Going up into Eastern Europe, 4 American soldiers killed after they went missing on training mission in Lithuania just miles from the border. From Anthony Blair. Four U.S. Army soldiers have died in Lithuania after they disappeared on a training site while on maneuvers just miles from the border. NATO's security chief, Mark Rutte, said on Wednesday. 4 soldiers from the 1st Brigade, 3rd Infantry Division, based out of Fort Stewart, Georgia, were last seen alive on Tuesday riding an armored vehicle during a tactical training exercise at a military site near the city of Pabradė in eastern Lithuania. The base is about 6 miles from the border with Belarus, a staunch Russian ally, a Russian puppet state actually, and comes at a time of ratcheting tensions in the region. Lithuania's military has not confirmed the exact details of what happened, but local media reports that the 4 may have drowned after their M88A2 Hercules armored vehicle became trapped in swampy terrain. Rutte says that he received word of the deaths of the 4 soldiers and extended his thoughts and prayers to their families and the U.S. Isn't that the guy that used to be the Prime Minister of the Netherlands, by the way? I seem to remember Styx talking about that guy. This is still early news and we do not know details, he told reporters while on a visit to Poland's capital, Warsaw. This is really terrible news and our thoughts are with families and loved ones. Oh wait, no, he's not Eastern European, he's from the Netherlands. I don't know the Dutch accent. I'll have to go back and watch Goldilocks stream. Although I don't think she streams anymore. I haven't seen her up there for a while. So this, and the reason that I did include this one on here, and we're not going to go too deep into this one, based on the fact that, well, this isn't what it was sold to. The issue with this happens to be, when this news first broke, the page shills came out and started saying, well, this is Trump's fault and they were going around the Russian area and they got killed because his State Department is incompetent. But it sounds to me like they just hit a patch of swamp and drowned. That's why they went missing. That's why we can't find them anymore. This doesn't look like this was any foul play. This looked like people being stupid. Let's grab one from NPC News. Missing U.S. soldiers' vehicle submerged more than 16 feet in peat bog as search goes on. The M88 Hercules armored recovery vehicle was found more than 16 feet below the ground on Wednesday, a day after the soldiers went missing during a training exercise. Rescuers in Lithuania were digging in a peat bog on Thursday as they tried to recover the submerged vehicle of 4 U.S. Army soldiers who went missing during a training exercise earlier this week. After the chat for them, and I want the moss from the peat bog. I plant carnivorous plants in that. The M88 Hercules armored recovery vehicle was found more than 16 feet below the ground on Wednesday, a day after the soldiers went missing, while training in Lithuanian armed forces and law enforcement. PM Gintautas Palakas expressed support for the rescue operation Thursday after visiting the training ground near the town of Pabrade, about 30 miles south of the Lithuanian capital, Vilnius, and 6 miles from the border with Belarus. Our thoughts and prayers are with their families and brothers in arms, he said in a post on X. So I'm sure that it is possible that Belarusian or Russian soldiers jumped over the border, shot these guys in the head, put them back in the recovery vehicle, and set it on the peat bog so it would sink. But it sounds to me at this point, face value, that it's more of they were driving somewhere that they weren't supposed to be, and they drowned. It's actually another possibility. That I think I can read on YouTube. I guess we'll chance it. Tricks for Free says those 4 missing Americans were probably killed in the Ukraine. They use training exercise deaths to cover up when they have put our troops in places that they should not be. That is also a possibility as well. So, if more details come out, we'll figure it out. Let's grab two back to back from the Associated Press. Just want to make sure these are in the same topic range. They are. A coalition of the willing mulls more aid for Ukraine and possible European armed force. They should have had a European armed force as soon as they started being afraid of Russia. Just a sec. If you have a fear of another country coming into your country, you make an armed force. You don't reach across the ocean and say, "Hi, Big Daddy United States, can you do this for me?" From John Lester and Sam Petriquin. Ukraine's allies from across Europe gathered for talks in Paris on Thursday on how to strengthen Kiev's hand and its military as it pushes for a ceasefire with Russia, and to consider proposals to deploy European troops in the country in tandem with any peace deal. Emmanuel Macron is hosting the leaders of nearly 30 countries, plus NATO and the EU chiefs. The summit comes at a crucial juncture in more than a 3-year war, with the intensifying diplomatic efforts to broker ceasefires, driven by pressure from the US President Trump to end the fighting. But the conflict is raging on. Russian drone attacks overnight before the leaders met in a luxury of the French presidential palace injured more than 20 people, Ukrainian officials said. U.S. brokered agreements this week to safeguard shipping in the Black Sea and halt long-range strikes on energy infrastructure were greeted as a first step towards peace. But Ukraine and Russia have disagreed over the details and accused each other of deal violations, foreshadowing a long contentious process ahead. Fanning has joined us over on Rumble. Shared to Twitter and X, playing catch up on the last hour and 23 minutes. Well, thank you. It's always appreciated. Shared out to his, where are we at? 13,000 followers, I think. Yeah, 13,500 followers. Quest is a good man. France and Britain are pushing separate initiative to build a coalition of nations, willing in one way or another to support the deployment of a European armed force in the Ukraine with the aim of securing any peace deal by dissuading Russia from attacking the country again. Some European countries are more comfortable with the potential deployment than others, not least because a big unknown is whether Trump would allow U.S. forces and intelligence agencies to back up any European contingent with air and logistical support and other assistance. Building a force big enough to act as a credible deterrent, British officials have talked about possibly 10,000 to 30,000 troops. Would also be considerable effort for nations that shrank their militaries during the Cold War, but are now rearming. There would also be questions to resolve about who would command the force and how it might respond to major violations by Russia of any peace agreement. At what point, by the way, and that's my big question here, at what point do we just say Europe is one single country? They act like a single country, they make coalitions like a single country, they are under a main government. I mean, it's a continent, but nowhere else in the world do we have a continental government, except for Europe. Europe acts more like the United States is supposed to act. One governing nation for foreign diplomacy, military, with individual nation states having their own laws, their own regulations, their own rules, and their own cultures. I think it's time to go back and Quest Banning says hell can be an expletive if you use it unintentionally. Okay, good deal. The office of Keir Starmer, who's driving the European initiative, together with Macron, said military planners from Europe and beyond have been drilling down into details of how such a force might be put together, examining the full range of European military capabilities, including aircraft, tanks, troops, intelligence, and logistics. So, they're getting ready. It's, of course, of the willing. Let's see. Lunacy with the faces. Tricks for Free says EU is run by evil people. There's no need for a centralized form of government, period. That is evil. That's fair. But they're still acting like they are. That's the point that I'm making. So my question is not whether or not they need to, it's when they just bite the bullet and say, hey, we're our own country now. From AP again, Dissociated Press. Things to know about the limited ceasefire between Russia and the Ukraine, brokered by the US. From Samya Kulab. After 3 days of intense negotiations, the Trump admin, Ukraine and Russia agreed to a limited ceasefire in which the key details, including what was covered and how it will start, were disputed by the warring sides, indicating the road to a complete truce will be long and mired with contention. Oh, he's going up at 3 times speed. I'll slow down. Actually, before I say I'll slow down, let me get hypercaffeinated. It's good for you. Hypercaffeination in the morning. And if the good people at Celsius were paying me, it would be in their vessel. A reminder. I will drink your product. I won't eat because eating on air is cringy and it looks terrible. There's no way to make it look good. I will drink your product sitting on stream in your vessel if you pay me. I'm a good little capitalist. Alright, after 3 days of intense negotiations, the Trump admin, the Ukraine and Russia agreed to a limited ceasefire in which the key details, including what was covered and how it will start, were disputed by the warring sides, indicating a road to complete truce will be long and mired with contention. The negotiations focused on easing Black Sea shipping and halting long-range strikes on energy infrastructure, relatively low-hanging fruit that both sides had experience in negotiating before the U.S. brokered indirect talks. While much is yet unknown, here's a breakdown of the key elements of the partial ceasefire. A limited ceasefire began with a rocky start. Conflicting statements emerged immediately after the talks on Tuesday. Both sides differed on the start time of halting strikes on energy sites and accused the other of violating the ceasefire. Well, that's a little bit like going through and trying to have a convention of libertarians. You violated the ceasefire first. No, you violated the ceasefire first. Change that over to, you're a socialist. No, you're a socialist. No, you're a socialist. Russia also conditioned its part on opening the Black Sea shipping in the U.S., lifting sanctions, which Kiev dismissed. Russian officials have greeted the results of the talks with optimism, and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky described it as a good start, though some Ukrainian officials have expressed discontent. Well, at that point, you got to just come back up and look and say, okay, stop killing our boys here. Something tells me this is more advantageous for enemy, Ukrainian lawmaker Yaroslav Zhelezniak told the Interfax Ukraine news agency. Look, here's going to be the reality for you, Yaroslav. You're right, it probably is more advantageous for the enemy. The enemy's bigger than you. The enemy has more troops to throw out the meat grinder than you do. And you're operating from a country who has decided to put their official position as any sort of cessation of territory at all is completely off the table. And this war isn't considered to be at a ceasefire until Russia is out of Crimea, the Donbass, and even gives up some of their territory. So you're in a mindset where you're going to see anything beyond that as advantageous for the enemy. So I kind of don't want to hear it. Stopping fighting around the Black Sea shipping routes, the U.S. said Tuesday it reached a tentative agreement with Ukraine and Russia to stop fighting and ensure safe navigation in the Black Sea to separate talks with the two sides. Details of the deal were not released, including how or when it was to be implemented and monitored, but it appeared to mark another attempt to ensure the Black Sea shipping after the 2022 agreement that was brokered by the UN and Turkey was halted by Russia 1 year later in 23. It's unclear how the Black Sea deal would benefit the Ukraine. I can tell you how it's going to benefit the Ukraine. In a half a second, I can tell you how it's going to benefit the Ukraine. Russians are going to stop killing people. Right there. That's it. That's the tweet. Personally, I don't think this will significantly boost our export capacity. Frankly speaking, thanks to Ukrainian naval drones, we have considerably expanded capabilities in Black Sea, Zhelezniak said, trading blame over halting of energy strikes. The ceasefire also included a halt for long-range strikes on energy infrastructure, but sharp differences emerged immediately after Tuesday's announcement over when the halt to fighting would begin. Moscow said the ceasefire had started on March 18th and accused Kiev of violating the terms by striking energy sites inside Russia, a charge the Ukraine's general staff denied on Wednesday. Keep in mind with this that we are in a situation that both sides are not above striking their own energy infrastructure and saying, other side did it, it was them, it was them. It was not us that strike military, that strike energy infrastructure. It was moose and squirrel. So, that's the deal. That's what's going on with it. Let's skip the timeline. Let's not do that one. CNN has a timeline of Trump's pledge to end the Ukraine war. That one, we'll put that into, because we watched it week by week on Contemporary too. I'm going to put that in the Discord though. Lunacy slid into the server. I thought Lunacy was already in the server. Well, welcome, Lunacy. Oh, I thought you were in here this whole time. Join the conversation. Read the rules. Arvold says, but the people writing this don't care if the Ukrainians live or die. That's what started this war, the killing in the Donbass. I still think to this day that once this all gets declassified and it's all over, we're going to see a petition letter from heads of the areas, municipalities, etc., however they distribute their country, but heads of the Donbass region petitioning to Russia saying, Kiev, we want independence. Kiev will not let us go. Please help us. I still say to this day that this is what this is all going to be about. From Politico, Russia has seized the upper hand in the war, intel community warns. From Connor O'Brien, Oblasts. Thank you, Arvold. Basically counties. Okay. I didn't know if it would be like a state, if it was a county, if it was what it was, but Oblast is the name. From Connor O'Brien, U.S. intelligence agency sounded the alarm on Ukraine's dwindling battlefield prospects against Russia in an annual report released on Tuesday. Was there ever a doubt? The 25 annual threat assessment of the U.S. intelligence community, released by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, in conjunction with top officials' testimony at the Senate Intelligence Committee hearing, warns that Moscow has seized the upper hand in the war over the past year and is on the path to accrue greater leverage to force favorable terms in its negotiations with Ukraine and the West. Again, was this ever actually in question? Russia has a lot more people and a lot more armaments than the Ukraine does. Intelligence agencies see continued Russian military resilience despite heavy battlefield losses, replenishing personnel and ratcheting up its industrial capacity. Have you guys ever played StarCraft? It's not quite this easy, but Russia can basically drop a barracks on the Donbass border and just keep pumping Marines out as soon as they gather up minerals. It's not a perfect analogy, but it's pretty close. Just, again, with the number of people that are in that nation. Even though Russian President Vladimir Putin will be able to achieve the total victory he envisioned, unable rather to achieve the total victory he envisioned when initiating the large-scale invasion in February, Russia retains momentum as a grinding war of attrition plays to Russia's military advantages. The report states the grinding war of attrition will lead to gradual but steady erosion of Kiev's position on the battlefield, regardless of any U.S. or allied attempts to impose new and greater costs on Moscow. Russia is basically, well, with U.S. intervention. Without U.S. intervention, Russia would have just mowed over whoever is standing in the way of liberating the Donbass, which again I still believe is what happened. But with the U.S. intervention, Russia versus Ukraine is basically Zerg versus Protoss. The Russians, with their military armaments that they got from their aid deals with the U.S., are big, bulky, heavy, well-shielded soldiers, but there are not a lot of them, and it takes a long time to get more. Whereas Russia can continue to Zerg rush and throw cheap units that they don't care about at these big heavy soldiers until they drop. It's actually the same comparison I've made every time we talk about going to war with China. China. So yes, of course Russia has the upper hand. I want to play StarCraft. It's such an isolating, like, now here, home and family, like if I want to play Pokemon on my 3DS or Breath of the Wild on my Switch, I'm there in the middle of the room with the rest of the family. Whereas if I'm playing StarCraft, I'm here isolated off in the corner with my headphones on so they can't even hear the music going on. But I do want to play again. That's why I put that on my stream list, by the way, too. Because it'll be easier to come back out and share it out and play it if I'm doing it on stream with a bunch of other people watching, including the girlfriend and the kid. All right, Trump, we're going on to tariff news, rather. Trump threatens far larger tariffs if EU and Canada unite to do economic harm to the U.S. To start with, from Holly Elliott. President Trump threatened to impose far larger tariffs on the EU and Canada if they work together to combat trade tariffs. If the European Union works with Canada in order to do economic harm to the U.S., large-scale tariffs, far larger than currently planned, will be placed on them both in order to protect the best friend that each of these two countries has ever had, Trump said in a Truth Social post on Thursday. On Wednesday, the White House leader had announced that he will set a 25% tariff on all cars that are not made in the U.S. We'll be talking about that later. Global markets roiled as a new front opened in the burgeoning global trade war, with shares of U.S. and Asian automakers falling after the announcement, and European auto giants expected to do the same at the market open on Thursday. So, and again, I'm a very free trade person on paper. I think that there should be no tariffs across anywhere. And we should have free global trade. I'm very libertarian on that point. Get the governments out of the way. Let private companies do the shipping across the seas, overseas, and if we want the product from France, let's get the product from France. And we can afford to get it over here and pay the fuel costs to get it over here. If we want the German car, get it over here. I've kind of got my eye on sometimes on a German car. I don't know. I want a project car, I just don't know what to get at this point. If we want the French cheese, the German beer, the Middle Eastern shawarma, the cobalt from Africa, the Japanese anime. If we want all those things, that should be free and open to do so without our governments having to go back and fight with each other to get them here. But the issue, and where I'm actually in support of some of these tariffs coming over here, is the fact that the French, the Germans, the Canadians, the South Americans, the Africans, the Eastern Europeans, the Japanese, and everybody else have these massive tariffs already on us. All but locking us and our manufacturing out of their markets, while hoping to get rich off of American money by coming into our markets full, open, and free. My position on tariffs have always been a reciprocal one. We go through, we determine what the tariffs are on a specific product going into every country in the world, and then we impose the exact same tariff on that country to shut their markets out of our product and their products out of our markets. And if they want to enter our market more freely, then they lower their tariff. And then we lower ours in kind. There's 100% tariff on American cars in Germany, then we put 100% tariff on German cars in America. If you want to sell your Volkswagen over here, drop your tariff to 25, drop it to 0, and I will do the same. That's been my position on this from the very beginning. But now these two countries are teaming up to try to form economic binds to open up their markets to each other and shut us out of both markets. So yes, that's one way to come back out and do this. The White House on Wednesday said the latest tariffs will protect and strengthen America's car industry. We'll talk a bit about that later again. So I don't know what the details are, and CNBC doesn't really go into it on what the team-up tariff is going to be from the US and Canada, but I'd be interested to see how they do so overseas. All right, from ABC News, let's talk about the car tariffs. Trump announces 25% tariff on imported cars. Before I do that, I want to grab just a comment from Arvolt over here, going back to the Russia thing. The ethnic Russians in Donbass wanted the same thing the ethnic Russians in Crimea wanted. They wanted self-governments. Yeah, and it's, for me, looking at the map, and I'm not going to bring the map up, much to the dismay of the Mogwai, if he's listening. I'm not going to bring the map up right now. But the thing that always got me about the Ukrainian war was the fact that the Donbass is a relatively mountainous region. There's a lot of harsh terrain to go over if you want to go back. Because I've been told from the beginning of this that the end goal is for Russia to come back and take the Ukraine back into its territory. And I mean, we've been talking about this since all the way back in 2017, first year of Trump term 1. Is when we started talking about this, where Vladimir Putin's ultimate goal is to take back the entirety of the Soviet Union. Belarus is a Russian puppet state with a large peninsula of land. It's not really a peninsula because it's not surrounded by water, but a large section of its country going deep, deep into the Ukraine and coming up very, very close to Kiev. If you want to take the entire country, then you take the capital, and the closest way to get to the capital is to go down the Dnipro River from Belarus and go right into the middle of Kiev. Then it's all done, it's all over, and now you own all of Russia, or I'm sorry, all of the Ukraine, without having to destroy all the infrastructure. And you'll have rebels, and you'll have people in here and fighting, but the governance will be gone. Instead, they went through one of the most mountainous sections of the country on a 3-year slog to try to get to the capital that they could have been in 2 days. If they'd have gone through their puppet state and gone through. Which again tells me that the entirety of the Ukraine and Kiev was not the target. Like Arvold said, the ethnic Russians in Donbass wanted self-governance. Kiev doesn't give them self-governance. They petition to Russia, hey, give us a hand. We want you to help out. We want our own nation over here. And then we get the bullcrap narrative that this is all about trying to rebuild the Soviet Union, even though there has been absolutely no effort in any other direction for the Soviet Union. All right. Trump announces 25% tariff on imported cars and parts. Let's listen.
Our senior political correspondent, Rachel Scott, is tracking the latest for us at the White House. Good morning, Rachel.
Rebecca, good morning to you. The president announcing that the United States will impose a 25% tariff across the board on all cars and auto parts that are made outside of the United States. Those tariffs expected to go into effect in just a matter of days on April 3rd. And the president says they are permanent. Now, these could significantly raise prices for consumers. Nearly half of all the cars bought in the United States are made in other countries. New cars are already averaging nearly $50,000. And while it's unclear how the these tariffs will be implemented, experts say the prices will likely go up about $8,000 on a new imported car. Those increases could start within 1 to 2 months of these tariffs going into effect. Now, the president really is taking a gamble here. He is hoping that this drives up manufacturing in the United States. And while it could take months for these companies to even start speeding up production. And of course, the president did campaign on creating more jobs here in the United States, but he also campaigned on lowering costs for Americans too, Rebecca.
A big gamble, as you see, Rachel, and the leaders from Canada and Europe are responding overnight as well.
Yeah, the Canadian Prime Minister is calling this a very direct attack, saying he plans to meet with his cabinet later today to discuss options. Japan saying that every option is on the table, but the president issuing a stark warning overnight, saying that any country that responds with more tariffs will be met with even larger ones by the United States, even our allies, guys.
All right, Rachel, thank you so much. And Rebecca, of course, you cover business for us. Now, this is...
All right, and that's... They did bring up a good point off of this, and it's something that I've been bringing up off the beginning too. Well, first thing is you have to do is you do have to start somewhere, and yes, it is going to take months, sometimes years, to get some of these defunct factories back up, retooled, remachined, and people trained to get American car parts into the market. The answer that I have with this, because they're doing this from a protectionist side of things, is the fact that if you want innovation, if you want innovators to come back out and make products in this country, then the very first thing that you have to do is make it uncomfortable to get it from the other country. Otherwise, what incentive do they have to come back out and make the factory when they're not going to be able to compete on the global market with people in countries that only have to make 50 cents a day, US, because of the way that everything is structured. Now, Japan, I understand it's not that way. Japan is actually a fairly wealthy country, and the people, even their factory workers, are, from what I understand, fairly well paid. But where it comes to and coming in with the US, I mean, yeah, you either get it out from Asia, from China, from the Philippines, etc., from Malaysia, or you pay a guy 15, 17, 19, 25 bucks an hour to go make this on the factory line. So that's where they're at with that. An interesting one going in the other direction from NPC. Trump floats tariff reduction if China agrees to TikTok deal. From Steve Kopak. Trump said Wednesday evening he might give China a little reduction in tariffs if its government approves a TikTok deal his administration brokered. China's going to have to pay a role in that, he said at a news conference at the White House. Possibly in the form of an approval. Maybe. I think that they'll do that. Trump signed a memo in February calling for a fair and reciprocal trade tariff of all U.S. major trading partners, including longtime allies. He previously announced on April 2nd, when sweeping trade levies were announced, that it would be Liberation Day in America. The fate of the short video app in the U.S. has been up in the air since last year, following the passage of a bipartisan law signed by Biden. Citing national security concerns, the legislation forces the platform's Chinese owner, ByteDance, to sell the app to a non-Chinese buyer or face a nationwide ban. Going back a bit in the stream, because Quest Fanning is playing catch-up here, former national security officials said the Biden laptop was a hoax. They knew that they were lying. That's another good point, by the way. Asked about Trump's remarks on Thursday, the Chinese Foreign Ministry referred to past comments that TikTok has always complied with U.S. laws and regulation, and the U.S. should provide an open and non-discriminatory environment for businesses from all countries, as opposed to the heavily discriminatory environment for us to be in their countries. Again, with the reciprocals. So, not clear what the details are with this as well, but our markets might still be flooded with Chinese product. In Doge news, Doge slashes billions more in expenses for programs like Peruvian climate change and gender equity in Mexico. From Greg Wiener. The Department of Government Efficiency announced it had terminated 113 contracts valued at $4.7 billion Tuesday, including a U.S. Department of Agriculture consulting contract for Peru's climate change activities. Tuesday, agencies terminated 113 wasteful contracts with a ceiling value of $4.7 billion and savings of $3.3 billion, including $145,000 USDA consulting contract for Peru climate change and activities, the department posted on X. Doge also announced the Department of Labor had canceled $577 million in American Last grants, totaling $237 million in savings. The funding that was canceled includes $10 million for gender equity in the Mexican workplace, $12.2 million for worker empowerment in South America, $6.25 million for improving respect for workers' rights in agricultural supply chains in the countries of Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador. Also limited was $5 million to elevate women's participation in the workplace in West Africa. Good luck with that. That's heavily Muslim. $4.3 million to assist foreign migrant workers in Malaysia, $3 million to enhance Social Security access and worker protection for internal migrant workers in Bangladesh, and $3 million for safe and inclusive work environments in the southern African country of Lesotho. Which is all well and good, and if what he's saying is real, then congratulations. Hopefully we can make taxes go down. I'll be talking about this later and things I like, things that I hate. I want to see some receipts from this, dude. I do. I want to see details of these programs, who applied for them, who approved them, what the research was that's supposed to be going into them, and what the justification for the money was. Because they're just coming in and saying, I terminated all these contracts. It's my taxpayer money going to them. Can I see these contracts? Can I see what's going on with them, please? All right, now we're in catch-up mode. From CBS News, Trump nominates Susan Menarez for CDC director, elevating from acting role from Jennifer Jacobs and Alexander Tin. Trump has decided to pick Susan Menarez to be the new nominee to head the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, making a permanent acting role. She served at the Public Health Agency in recent months. Menarez would be named in place of David Weldon, a former Florida congressman whose nomination was withdrawn by the White House earlier this month over concerns he didn't have the votes to clear the Senate confirmation process. As an incredible mother and dedicated public servant, Dr. Menarez understands the importance of protecting our children, our future, our communities. Americans have lost confidence in the CDC due to political bias and disastrous management, the president posted on Truth Social, announcing the pick Monday afternoon. Menarez appeared to beat out others who had been seen as contenders for the role, including former Obgyn and Texas Congressman Michael Burgess. Weldon also floated Florida Surgeon General Joseph Ladapo for the role, calling for him to be at the top of Mr. Trump's list to replace him as the nominee. If confirmed, Menarez would be the first head of the CDC to be voted on by senators under a change passed by Congress in 2022. Previous directors of the agency were able to take the reins soon after they were picked by the president without undergoing the confirmation process, which I think is good. I think that all of the cabinet heads should be. So I know there's been controversy, but it was quickly quieted because apparently when she changed the name on the Twitter post, a bunch of people went back into the former director's Twitter history and found pro-vaccination stuff, but again, this was from before her time. Let's grab one from the Hill. Matt Walsh and RFK Jr. blast conservatives defending soda and SNAP. Paid influencer campaign exposed. Oh, this is a video. I brought this down as an article. I'm not going to do this video. But Matt Walsh did put an op-ed in the Daily Wire as well. That's behind the paywall. You know, I should have figured this out a week ago when I put this on here. But this all does come in response to a Texas bill that has not been signed into law working on banning soda and candy from SNAP benefits. From Fox 4 KDFW, which I believe by the call letters means it's from Dallas-Fort Worth. Texas lawmakers debate bill banning soda and candy from SNAP benefits, from Shannon Murray. Texas lawmakers are debating a bill that would prevent people from using SNAP benefits on junk food. Senate Bill 379 would prohibit Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program benefits from being used on items like soda, energy drinks, candy, chips, and cookies. More than 3.3 million Texans utilize SNAP benefits, which used to be referred to as food stamps. Republican State Senators Myers Middleton of Galveston said he filed SB 379 to get back to the original intent of the SNAP program and focus on nutrition. While SNAP funding is 100% federal funding, multiple states have passed or are proposing similar legislation. The bill comes as there's a push at the federal level under Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr. to restrict ultra-processed foods and additives. That's where I have the issue with this, by the way. Republican lawmakers say the bill is about removing food and drinks with little nutritional value from government assistance programs. The USDA's stated purpose for the SNAP program is nutritious food essential to health and well-being, while junk food certainly doesn't fit that purpose, Senator Middleton said, so having these types of foods and drinks qualified under the program is actually contrary to the entire purpose of the SNAP program, the food stamp program. And it's no secret that Americans are less healthy compared to decades ago. So, if you are specifically and specifying that item, Coca-Cola, Pepsi-Cola, Hershey's bar, things like that are excluded from this, then this is something I can go back and get behind because you've made your case and you've put specifics behind what it is that you can and cannot utilize and use. When they just come out and do the broadband, we're going to ban junk food from this, we need to have a definition on what junk food is. When I say this, I don't think that people who are on food stamps should be using and buying soda with it, that they should be buying candy with it, they should be doing this kind of thing with it. But a lot of people, especially very health conscious people like RFK Jr., and when this first came up, I used the example of the Knorr pasta and rice sides, which I'm going to be completely honest, kept me alive from age 27 to 29. It wasn't a great existence, and I gained a little bit of weight because of it, and probably lost a little bit of muscle mass because of it. But that's what kept me alive. And I wasn't using supplemental nutrition program when I actually looked into it because I was struggling so bad. I got told to go and get bent because not only was I making too much money, even though I was at the federal poverty line at the time, but I was also told that I should be ashamed of myself for even trying to sign up because I'd be taking benefits away from somebody who really needed it. So with the meager little bit of money that I had coming in at the time, I loaded up on Knorr rice sides, pasta sides, mac and cheese. I knew where I could go and get meat that was discounted because I knew the guy that owned the place. So I did what I could at the time. But a lot of people would look at those ultra-processed rice sides and say, well, that's junk food. And realistically, I think they'd be very right. But it's a really good way to make a little bit of money, especially with SNAP benefits and whatnot being what they are, to make that go a really, really, really long way. And number two, you can turn around and get a bunch of them if you got a bunch of food stamps and keep them in the pantry for some time later. One of the hard parts, and Pom and I were discussing this when I first brought up the idea of, hey, there's issue with this, is the fact that yes, you can go get fresh meat, fresh fruit, fruits, fresh vegetables, etc. And you can get all these things with the supplemental nutrition program, but they're so fragile that you only have a day or two to use them, whereas you put the mac and cheese and the Nora rice sides in your cabinet and they will survive the apocalypse. So that's my thought behind that. We need a definition on what this actually is and what this actually looks like. We do. More tariff news, as long as we're there. Trump says any country buying Venezuelan oil will face a 25% tariff. Trump said Monday he will impose tariffs on 25% on any nation that buys oil from Venezuela. Venezuela has been very hostile to the U.S. and the freedoms which we espouse. Therefore, any country that purchases oil and or gas from Venezuela will be forced to pay a tariff of 25% on the U.S. on any trade they do with our country, Trump said in a post on Truth Social. Trump claimed, and it's CNN, so they have to put this, without evidence, Venezuela has purposely and deceitfully sent criminals, including violent individuals and members of gangs like Tren de Aragua, to the U.S. We've seen evidence of at least the people that are coming from these countries are violent, often gang members. We've had them here. I'm a little bit torn with this one because on the one side of this, knowing how big government is in Venezuela, I don't want to support them. Therefore, taking this oil out of our market is going to be a good way to, and taking this oil out of the global market is going to be a good way to start to collapse the Venezuelan economy, which, while being communistic, is also literally held up by the oil reserves that they have underneath their nation. But I also know on a global trade and global commodity rather, that the more oil we have in our system, in our trade, the lower the gas prices are going to be. And taking a large amount of this out of there is going to drive those gas prices up. So, and again, the free market thing. I don't like the idea of dictating where other people and other nations buy their stuff from. Arvold says the funny thing about being poor is it's not hard to eat cheaply, rice, beans, etc., but it's hard to enjoy what you can afford, no taste. Also, food deserts is a real thing poor people have to deal with. Absolutely correct. Although, Arvold, and I'm not going to reveal the state that you live in, but I know what it is. I might actually reveal what I'm about to say. But for Arvold to say that it's impossible to enjoy rice and beans, given that I know approximately where he lives, is a little bit funny to me because that's a staple of the diet where he lives. I don't know if it's a staple of Arvold's diet specifically, but it's a staple of the diet of the people that live around him. And they find a way to make it taste good. I've never been there, but I've eaten cuisine made by people from there, and they find a way to make rice and beans taste really good. So there's a bit of irony that goes on for the fact that Arvold, of all people, is saying it's hard to enjoy rice and beans. It's in the seasoning. And I don't know what they put into it either, but it's in the seasoning. Alright. Let's keep going. Apparently that one's not going to load, so let's keep going. Former U.S. Attorney in Virginia found dead at 43. From Bill Helsel, Ken Delanian, and David Rohde. Former U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, Jessica Aber, was found dead in Alexandria on Saturday morning. Police said she was 43. Police discovered Aber's body while responding to a report of an unresponsive woman around 9:20 a.m., the Alexandria Police Department said in a statement. Police believe the death was a result of a long-standing medical issue, a friend of the family told NBC News. Police said they would investigate the circumstances as a matter of protocol, but that the medical examiner's office would determine the cause and the manner of death. Two former senior Justice Department officials with knowledge of the matter told NBC News authorities have found no reason to suspect foul play. Aber resigned as U.S. Attorney on January 20th, the day that Trump was inaugurated. She was appointed by Biden on August 10th, 21, and was then confirmed by the Senate. Aber had been Assistant U.S. Attorney for the district since 2009 and was Deputy Chief of the Criminal Division before being named U.S. Attorney, her department biography says. Now, I would normally not announce the death of a random lawyer it would be a random attorney in the district court system, except for the fact that this is a second very, very young passing away. Why are my messages up? Of someone associated with Biden in very short order. Julian's Rum says so in the last 2 months, a Biden White House aide and a Biden attorney have died at the ages of 28 and 43. And they both look, and I'm not a doctor, so I don't know much about what I can see from outside appearances, to be relatively healthy. And Arvold, and I didn't read it right away, but Arvold beat me to it of the what did she know about Hillary Clinton? And I mean, I do have questions, and most of them are probably not going to get answered because they'll both be ruled as natural causes, but that's where we are at with that. The story that I wanted to make sure that I got to no matter what. I'm going to drop this one too, by the way. Nope, that's a later article. WWE legend Kane. Now a Tennessee mayor challenges Tim Walz to charity wrestling match after governor's bold claim. From Ryan Morick. After Minnesota Governor Tim Walz said he believes he could kick most of Trump supporters' butts, one of them stepped up to the plate and he's automatically the heavy favorite. WWE legend Kane, who stands at 7 feet tall and wrestled over 300 pounds during his illustrious career, who was also one of my favorite wrestlers when I was a big WWE fan, has challenged Walz to a charity wrestling match. Kane, whose real name is Glenn Jacobs, is now the mayor of Knox County in Tennessee, issued a challenge to Walz on Thursday. I want him to do it in the mask. I do. All joking aside, Governor Walz, let's put our money where our mouth is in a charity wrestling match. We'll split the gate 50-50 between our chosen organizations. I'll kick things off myself with a $10,000 donation. What do you say? Walz, who was former VP Karras' running mate this past election cycle, made his bold claim in a recent episode of Gavin Newsom's podcast. Why does Gavin Newsom have a podcast? I think this is going to be in here. There's that. No, I don't have video of that, unfortunately. I think I could kick most of their blanks. I know I can outrun them. I don't know if we're going to fall in the place where we are. Okay, I challenge you, a WWE fight here kind of thing. Walz better hope it's not a tag team matchup because Kane might recruit The Undertaker, who has a similar build to Jacobs. In fact, the two wrestlers, known at one time in the WWE as the Brothers of Destruction, together implored voters to check Trump's name at the ballot box ahead of the election. Alright, November 5th, Election Mania. The choice is yours. You can go with Trump, Kane, and The Undertaker, or you can take Kamala Harris, Dave Bautista, and Tim Walz. Choose wisely, the nation depends on it. The Undertaker, whose real name is Mark Calloway, said in a TikTok video with both Trump and Jacobs beside him. Kane needs a red MAGA mask based on his WWE mask. That would be cringe, and also I would laugh my butt off if I saw that. So, and just for here, because it's good enough for term papers, I did leave the Wikipedia article in for Glenn Jacobs. He's 57 years old. He's 7 feet tall. He weighed in at 300 when he was 323 was when he was what he was billed for wrestling. Billed from Decatur, Illinois. So, yeah, that's a big dude. And yes, I would kind of like to see it. The Daily Wire reporting on that one. Tim Walz strangely silent after former WE champ rallies troops for charity match. From Virginia Kruta. Tim Walz is suddenly silent in the wake of a direct challenge from WWE champion turned Republican politician Glenn Jacobs, who's currently serving as mayor of Knox County, Tennessee. Walz had boasted just days earlier while on a podcast with Gavin Newsom that conservatives who criticized his masculinity during the 2024 election had only done so because he intimidated them. A number quickly pushed back, including Jacobs, who had great success as Kane in the WWE before transitioning to the life of a public service in Tennessee, who initially just laughed off Walz's comments.
So Minnesota Governor Tim Walz said that he could kick most Trump supporters' asses. Tim Walz.
But a short time later, after some consideration, Jacobs dropped a serious challenge. Let's dance the Tennessee Waltz. Walz versus Jacobs. Clay Travis will put 10 grand into this one too. Glenn Jacobs, we already have close to 50 grand in pledges and a corporate title sponsor. Come on, Walz, I want to see it. There's Kane's ex as well. Everyone is asking if I have one last match left. I think I found my final victim.
Yeah, well, this
I
notion
think
of
I could kick most of their ass. I do think that if they wanted to. I know I can run them, but I don't know if we're going to fall into that place where we want to. Okay, we challenge you to a WWE fight here type of thing.
How do we make this happen? Let's make this happen, you guys. Kane versus Walz. And yes, he has to wear the big red machine mask. Oh, I want to see that. I would skip church for that, you guys. Alright. Last one, then we'll do things I like, things I hate. Head out of here for the night. Or the morning, I guess. CIA confirmed Ark of the Covenant's existent using remote viewing resurfaced declassified documents claim. From Shane Galvin. Paging Dr. Jones. The CIA claimed to have confirmed the existence of the Ark of the Covenant by way of remote viewing, aka extrasensory perception or ESP, alleging the mysterious and sacred object is guarded by entities with an unknown power. Recently resurfaced declassified document claims. In a remote viewing session on December 5th, 88, remote viewer 32 was tasked with identifying a target that, unbeknownst to them, ended up being the story Ark of the Covenant, according to the document, which was declassed on August 8, 2000, and has been circulating on social media. Logistically, when a remote viewer is tasked with searching a target, the desired object is written down on a piece of paper and put into an envelope. The remote viewer does not know what is written on and is guided through the process by another person. Retired U.S. Army Chief Warrant Joe McMoneagle explained. Information collected under this protocol is the only information that can be identified as remote viewing, McMoneagle says. I don't know if I buy this or not. Apparently this thing is sitting in Ethiopia in a church and has been since the 80s. And the only way a person could see it was through telepathy, telekinesis, by reaching out without even knowing what it is he's looking for. And we've known this since 88. Why don't we go and get this if we know this so well and so deeply? I don't know. But apparently that's not going to be the case. All right. Let's finish up for the day. We're going to do rules of acquisition and things I like, things I hate. So let's get this up here. I do have to get rules of acquisition up because I neglected to do so at the top of the stream. Let's get that up here. And let's go through the close of the show. Scrolling down, we finished off on the 89th rule of acquisition, the second version from the DS9 short story. Now we go on to Old Friends, New Planets, which they don't note what that is. Let me see if it notes it in the highlight. We'll back up for just a second. Oh, it's an episode of Lower Decks. So I've not seen this one, so I can't tell you how this is used in canon. This is season 4. I've only seen up to season 3 on Lower Decks. I like Lower Decks, it's funny. Alright, the 91st rule of acquisition. Your boss is only worth what he pays you. An ironic statement, talking about Starfleet that doesn't use any currency, but your boss is only worth what he pays you. That's actually, it goes on to a rule that we talked about, or a saying that we talked about when we were mechanics, when I was still a mechanic, is that your toolbox has wheels. If you need a job and you're hurting for a job, and you don't know where your next meal is going to come from, then yes, unfortunately, your pay is going to be lower, and you got to take what you can get because it's what you can get at the time. I know this, I lived through this in my 20s. When a market is different and you can go out and get your job and there are a bunch of jobs out there available, then this rule falls into place. Your boss is only worth what he pays you, and there's going to be somebody else out there. If you're good at what you do and you're known as being good at what you do, or even if you're not, if they feel that they can train you, then there's going to be somebody else out there who can come back and make the deal and throw a little bit more money at you too. So if you feel that it's not right for you, if you don't think that there's any room for advancement or anything else, your toolbox has wheels, proverbially in most of your cases. But don't be afraid to go back and look. It keeps your employer honest, especially in a market like this. And it opens up opportunities that you never thought that you'd have. I didn't think that I'd be doing the job that I do right now. And I wouldn't have ever been able to dream that I was doing that 10 years ago. And now I am. So, alright. Let's do some things that I hate and some things that I like. Things that I hate, number 1. Ben Shapiro, why does it matter who shot JFK? With a lengthy op-ed talking about, and I'm not even going to read this, talking about why we shouldn't even be worried about who killed JFK Jr. Or, I'm sorry, JFK Sr. rather, in the famed 60s assassination. And where I have with this, and Shapiro does allege that Oswald was a lone gunman. He takes the official narrative off of this. But the reason that I say that this should matter and why I put this on things that I hate is because if he's right, then he's right and nothing else matters at this point. But if he's wrong, and there was a major government reason and government involvement in killing JFK, then that shows us that the government is not afraid to turn its guns on us as its subjects, citizens. So yes, it matters who shot JFK and who organized the shooting of JFK and who made it possible to shoot JFK. Because if they're going to be so brazen to do it to the president, surrounded by Secret Service, then how's it going to be when you are no longer convenient to them as well? Other things that I hate. Chuck you, Schumer. Schumer attacks Americans who think they should get to keep what they earn. With video. Schumer mocks Americans who want to keep their hard-earned income and praises government as a barrier to them. Let's listen.
And you know what their attitude is? I made my money all by myself. How dare your government take my money from me? I don't want to pay taxes. Or, I built my company with my bare hands. How dare your government tell me how I should treat my customers, my the land and water that I own, or my employees. They hate government. Government's a barrier to people, a barrier to stop them from doing things. They want to destroy it. We are not letting them do it, and we're united.
Okay, good.
That's like Obama. I didn't build that, or you didn't build that company. The government did. Well, no, the government didn't stay up long nights wondering how they were going to make payroll, how they're going to keep the lights on, and how they're going to sell enough product to do so. And yes, Chuck Schumer is dead wrong on that one. I would say I hope he gets primaried, but I know what's waiting in the wings for him. U.S. is staging serious firepower near the Middle East. The B-2 Spirit stealth bomber is the only aircraft in the world capable of carrying the massive ordnance penetrator. Briefly from this one, the U.S. is moving serious military assets near the Middle East as Trump continues to pummel the Houthis in Yemen and has warned that Iran must enter a nuclear deal in the next several weeks or its nuclear program will be eliminated. The War Zone reported that multiple B-2s were en route to the Indian Ocean island of Diego Garcia, an island in the British Indian Ocean Territory where the U.S. military staged assets for the Middle East. At least 3 B-2s and 3 C-17s and 10 aerial refueling tankers were deployed to strategic base over the last 48 hours. A report said a 4th B-2 appears to have been en route to the base where it was forced to make an emergency landing in Hawaii. We're going to war, folks. Are you ready to offer up your children for the military-industrial complex? Now, a lot of this is going to be a show of force, just to remind the people over there of, hey, this is what we can do to you. If need be. Don't screw with us. Other things that I hate. MAGA figures fuel the idea. This is actually, by the way, catching a little bit of traction, and I'm not real big on this. Fuel the idea of a Derek Chauvin pardon. Now, a couple problems that I have with this, and the Axios article specifically cites Ben Shapiro as a MAGA figure, which is hilarious in my mind because he's one of the most anti-Trump people in new media at this point. But regardless, with Chauvin, yes, he can go off and he can be pardoned. The first thing is, with all the effort that they're going through with this, it's not going to do a thing if they go back and pardon him. Because it's not going to change the fact. Tim Walz is not going to pardon him. So he's still going to be sitting in prison for this. They would exhaust and exonerate the federal charges because that's what the Donald has the ability to do so, but Chauvin is still going to be sitting in prison for 37.5 years. The other idea that's coming with this is the idea of going and retrying this with the evidence, and that's what Shapiro's been trying to present in his new little series that he has going on. The issue with this is not the fact that I think that Chauvin is in prison rightfully, because I don't. I've looked at the evidence, I looked at the testimony, I've looked at the toxicology reports, and yes, I do believe that Chauvin is in prison for reasons that he should not be in prison for. What bothers me about this is the timing, because they started pushing this as we were going into Inauguration Day, knowing full well that if we get a retrial and the verdict is overturned based on new or now allowed evidence, then we are going to see protests in the streets to the level and even beyond what we saw in 2020, 2021. And there's going to be organizing and backing behind this too. And I mean, I do look at some of this and I think that this is what people like Shapiro want. They want to see the violence, they want to see the protests, and they want to see the Insurrection Act come down. So now the names of these big presidents that they don't seem to really like are marred. And then next thing you know, we have neoconservative warmonger back in office. So no, Chauvin should not be in prison, but when you're specifically looking to get this done as you're coming into a presidency of someone that you don't really care for, then I see other things going on behind this. Patel also trying to get some domestic war going on our side, looking at our borders. U.S.-Canada border eyed as vulnerability by China. Russia border, says Patel, the enemy adapts. U.S. adversaries such as China and Russia have started to target the northern border with Canada, Kash Patel told lawmakers on Wednesday. During testimony in front of the House Intelligence Committee, Patel told lawmakers that the effective resolution to the crisis at the southern border has caused adversaries such as China and Russia and Iran to shift their resources to targeting the U.S. northern border. The enemy adapts. So, yeah, now we can go back and militarize our northern border, make our... people like this, they just always want to be at war. And yes, we should probably have some sort of border patrol with this. And I would hope that Canada, given the fact that they vet anybody who comes in from this side of the border into their country, is doing the same with other people who are coming across the border and in from the airlines as such. I would hope that they're doing this. I don't know if they are, or if they're just, welcome in. Hey, here's where the border is. These people made us mad with tariffs, so hey, go have fun. For this, I think it's worth looking into, but when I hear people like Patel doing this, I do have fears that this goes back to being the Bushite warmongering again, over and over again. Just a couple more things on the things that I hate side. Like I was saying before with the Doge article, NPR is reporting that Doge says it needs to know the government's most sensitive data, but it can't say why. I am huge on the idea of an advisory committee coming in, finding where the waste is, showing us where the waste is, and letting the people decide and pressure the Congress and the President on how to get rid of this. I've been in favor of the Department of Government Efficiency from day one, from the first time that it was announced. The biggest issue that I've had while it's been in practice is the fact that we hear shrimp running on treadmills, climate change in Peru, gender equity in Mexico. We hear about all these things. I have yet to see any documentation of any of this. And I stand a bit with the progressives on this side of the fact that a person with no transparency can come back and say, I'm cutting this money because this is this, I'm cutting this money because this is this, I'm cutting this money because this is this, and just go in and cut programs of just people, like they say, people that he doesn't like, or people that with departments that are headed by people that he doesn't like, or possibly departments that are investigating him. I'm still trying to wrap my head around why certain departments are investigating Musk, because they have no investigative authority, but I don't know why USAID would be investigating Musk and not the FBI or someone like that. I have issues with that in and of itself. But I need to start seeing the receipts on some of this stuff, or I'm going to be standing against it as fast as the progressive movement did. But speaking of Musk going the other direction and actually being in support of him here at this point, markets are up, by the way, this morning. It's the world's hottest car company, and you can't buy one in America. From John Liu and Hassan Tayer. Here is CNN making a commercial, paid or unpaid, I have no idea, for one of Musk's biggest worldwide competitors, because Africa Man bad. They of course are talking about China EV giant BYD, and the big problem that I have with this, and you can spend your money on whatever you want. I'm not going to come back and say we shouldn't be allowed to buy this car. Palm is in the house. If that takes too long to stream, Palm might not be in the house. I've got 4 tabs left after this one, so it'll be just a moment. Let's see. In the world of EVs, there's a Chinese company outdoing Musk's Tesla, and it's just getting started. BYD, the Shenzhen-based Chinese EV champion, eclipsed Tesla in annual sales last year. Last week, it unveiled a revolutionary battery charging technology that says it adds 250 miles of range in 5 minutes, outpacing Tesla superchargers, which take 15 minutes to get 200 miles. And last month, BYD launched God's Eye, an advanced driver assistance system, rivaling Tesla's full self-driving feature. There's 2 things that I'm not interested in, no matter who the car company is. They're just 3 examples of how BYD has been pulling ahead of Tesla, the company once casually dismissed by Elon Musk, as now effectively outperforming Tesla in sales, innovation, and price competitive. They're not resting on their laurels, as you can see from the God's Eye announcement, and how... Yeah, that's what I want to see. Driving around with the Chinese government watching me. They're not resting on their laurels, as you can see from the God's Eye announcement, from the fast charging announcement. Tu Li, founder and managing director of the consultancy firm Sino Auto Insights, told CNN, they're content to push the envelope and set the pace for the whole world. Having dominated the home market of China, the world's largest automaker, BYD is starting to expand globally, with notable exceptions, like the US, a country that is effectively barred it due to 100% tariffs on other passenger cars. So, here is CNN again, because Africa Man bad, writing a full-page advertisement for Tesla's biggest rival that we can't buy in this country anyway. To say, hey, the Chinese product is just better in all ways than Tesla is. And that might be true. We're not going to get to drive them over here anytime in the near future, because the tariffs are going to continue in this country, keeping them locked out of our market. But with this, you've got one company putting its thumb on the scale, trying to come out and say, yes, go buy from the CCP because Elon Man bad. And there's a bunch of people who are going to come back out and gobble this all up. The last one of things that I hate, from Jif, who is Insurgent Thought, says, targeting students is one of the first moves of a fascist playbook. Always has been. Which is funny, because I thought the first move was targeting business, and I thought the first move was shrinking the government, and I thought that the first move was putting tariffs on other countries, and I thought that the first move... It's just literally over and over and over again. Here's what Orange Man is doing. This is the first move of fascism. I don't know why my messages are open again. Alright, let's do a couple things that I like. I only have 3 for this. And then we'll be through all of our tabs. Palate cleanser. Palate cleanser. You can't see this on the audio platform. I'm sorry. Nature is amazing. I just love how baby elephants have no understanding of how absolutely massive they are, and so they just behave like a big dog.
You like your shoe? I think so. Not
Yes, my Lapsky does that same thing, by the way. Look at the baby elephant.
You like your shoe? I think so.
Alright, there's your palate cleanse for the morning. Alright, other things that I like. So, I spent the morning complaining about the headset thing, the signal thing, and everything else like that. But one of the things that I do like about this is that we got fresh crop of memes coming out about this. One of my favorites happened this morning. From mostly peaceful memes, this was a royal screw-up by Hegseth. Now our enemies know that we use planes to conduct airstrikes. Secret's out, guys. We use airplanes to conduct airstrikes. It's over for us now. And the last one on things that I like is we have an explanation of why protesters in Gaza want Hamas out after more than a year of conflict. I talked about this yesterday. Also on things that I like, by the way. But I wanted to just touch on this a little bit more. Protests in Gaza are calling for an end to the war with Israel and for Hamas's ouster gathered momentum on Wednesday with hundreds of demonstrators for a second day displaying rare dissent. Why now? It was not immediately clear who organized the protests or how many joined them with the intention of rallying against Hamas. But some demonstrators told NPC News crew that they had reached the limit of their suffering and blamed Hamas for failing to bring an end to the war. And that's just it. It's just like I said yesterday. Societies are 2 missed meals away from revolution. And I'm sure that by this point, with the way that this is going, the fact that neither Hamas nor Israel want to agree to any sort of ceasefire between the two, they can only protest against their own governing authority, which is Hamas in this particular city-state. So if they can only protest against Hamas, then yes, they are 2 missed meals away from a revolution, and they're at that point. So hopefully with this we can get some end to this, just like we got an end to contemporary today. Where's my regular scene? There it is. And with that, we finish and we head out of here. And I go to the bathroom because I've been at this for almost 3 hours with a lot of energy drink in my system now. Where's my outro music? So, with that, we're out of here. I start to compile data and we make the decision on what day is our best day if we decide to go with a morning. I still do want to take a week and do 3 days of afternoon. I don't know if that's going to happen though, just based on the way that the calendar of the schedule goes. I have a lot of stuff that goes on in the afternoon, doctor's appointments, etc., that I don't know that I'd be able to make this effective. But some discussions will be made in the house now, deciding what we do, where we go, and what we do with that. But for now, we are out of here. I go back to work tomorrow, so you guys have a good weekend. I will have a good work week. We will meet back here one day next week. Announcements will be in the Discord and on the X to decide what it is that we do. So, take care. Have a wonderful day. Stick around if you're over on the Twitch side. Thank you for spending your morning commute with me. We had a very good turnout most days off of this, but we did not see at all at the 6 p.m. hour. So, and that's 6 p.m. Central Time as well. So we are definitely never going back to that. So with that, take care. Have a great weekend. We will see you here one day next week. Day to be determined over here on Contemporary. So stay safe. Enjoy your friends. Enjoy your family. Enjoy your work day. We'll be here next time for more news, more headlines, and more Contemporary. And until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.